Hello and welcome to Raboni Catholic Community and a very, very Merry Christmas to you. I hope you have a lovely time with family and make those reunions again, because Christmas is a great time to build those memories, and those memories last us forever. That's the memories that carry us through difficult times. Very interesting reflection today. Starts with maybe with some questions, and then we go into the message of Christmas itself. Tell me this if you know. How many Gospels are there in the Bible? Most of us, we know there are 4 Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Of the 4 Gospels, how many of those tell us, quote unquote, the Christmas story? Only 2. Luke and Matthew. Mark mentions Mary only 1 time. If we only had the Gospel of John, we would not know the name of Mary, the mother of Jesus. In the Gospel of John, he is not even named. She is not named. She is only referred to as the mother of the Lord or his mother. Mark's Gospel doesn't have a birth narrative, an infancy narrative. It starts by saying, in the beginning, the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, Son of God. And then John's Gospel starts, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and God was the Word. So only 2 of the 4 Gospels tell us the Christmas narrative, or the nativity narrative. Of the 2, it's very interesting when you get closer to them. We find that in the Gospel of Matthew, the main character in the infancy narrative is Joseph. We read at the Christmas Eve Mass the genealogy that traces Jesus to Joseph to David. So Joseph is the main character. It was Joseph who is the good man who doesn't want to embarrass Mary. Joseph, in the Gospel of Matthew, receives a dream and is instructed by God. In the Gospel of Luke, it's a different story. The main character in there is Mary. Mary is the one who receives a visit from the angel Gabriel. And then she breaks out in song and sings, my soul proclaims the goodness of the Lord. In the Gospel of Luke, Joseph is almost non-existent, right? These stories are interesting, that when they come to us, we make one story, but they are very, very different. Again, when you get even closer, for example, the Gospel of Matthew doesn't have angels, right? The Gospel of Matthew is a wee bit dark when it comes to this. Herod gets all confused that Jesus is born and goes and kills the kids. And in the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is not born in a manger out anywhere. He's born at home in Bethlehem. The Magi do not visit Jesus in a stable. They visit him at home. In the Gospel of Luke, yes, there is the journey to go and register the census, and then Jesus is born out there. But what our minds do is, our mind cannot take the 2 stories. So our mind merges the 2 stories and only makes one story. Jesus, and if you look at the nativity scene, Jesus is born both in Bethlehem and in a stable. The whole story is one, at least in our mind. We bring the angels and we bring the Magi, we bring Herod in. It's interesting what is happening in there. As we reflect on Christmas and the Christmas message itself, we have to ask ourselves this question: what is the problem? Or at least I ask myself this question: what is the problem with the Christian message as we receive it today and as we make one story of the 2 stories? The problem with the Christian message is that it has been domesticated. These passages, as they were written, were very subversive passages. They were meant to stir up something. And I've said this before, that in theology it is important to understand that there is no text without a context. So let's paint the context where these texts come from. The dominant power there is Rome. Rome is absolutely powerful. It's crushing the people. Actually, I'm going to take us to Matthew 16. Remember when Matthew 16, Jesus asks the disciples, who do people say that I am? And they say, or some say you're Elijah or one of the prophets, and then he says to them, who do you say that I am? And they say, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, right? Peter gives that answer. What is important in that question is not only the words that are used, but where Matthew has Jesus. Behind Jesus, there is the temple of Zeus. And on the other side, there is the temple or the altar of Augustus. Now, this is where I ask this question. So Jesus is standing in front of the temple of Zeus and the temple of Augustus, and he's asking, who do people say that I am? When you see that question in that context, it begins to make sense. Something is happening. So what is the intent of the gospel writers? They are announcing something remarkable here. They are saying to the Roman rulers, you are not the Lord, somebody else is. And his name is Yeshua from Nazareth, a simple man. In fact, if we were to go back, and I've said this before, if we were to go back and we were, let's say, in 33 AD, and I was to ask these same questions that I'm asking you today, like I ask, who was conceived by God? Who was called Son of God? Who was called Lord? Most of us ask that today. We say, Jesus, conceived by God. If you ask first century Christians, they wouldn't say Jesus. They probably will say Augustus, Caesar Augustus. But Caesar Augustus is believed to have been conceived by the god Apollo in the womb of his mother Atia. Augustus Caesar, is the one who is called Lord. He is the one who is called Son of God. So we have all this behind us, and then we hear the Christmas story. What is it saying? This is the beginning. This is the birth of a new dispensation. The ones who thought themselves powerful are not going to be powerful anymore. In fact, the gospel writers are saying, hey, there is a new captain, and it ain't you. It is not Caesar. It is this Jesus. So as we begin to celebrate this Christmas season, let us have that in mind. What does Jesus bring? What is the good news that he brings to people who have walked in darkness? The gospel writers are saying the era of the Romans has come to an end. A new era has begun, and you can decide what that era is. It is an era of kindness, because in Jesus, Son of God, we find a new kind of kindness, a new understanding of the human condition. So as we sit around the Christmas tree and share gifts, ask yourself what kind of gift you are going to bring to humanity. As I've said before, and I say again, you may be the only scriptures that somebody will ever read. So let's bring about kindness. Let's bring about understanding. Let's bring about some change within our own lives that announces that God is with us. God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.